All right, we're here, we're back, and thank you. What's happening? It's Robert Phoenix, and it's Sunday night, the night before 4th of July, and I apologize for being late tonight because I was working on the Harvest Moon page over on the website, getting everything together so everybody can sign up, and I lost the page. So I had to redo everything, which is fine because it's actually a better page than it was before. So I'll have a link for that here tonight's show. I'll show you the page, and we'll go through. We'll go through who's going to be there, what's happening, where it's going to be. You know, all the fuzzy details that are not so fuzzy anymore. So we're going to go for about 90 minutes tonight, and I'm going to try to jump in and get to the astrology tonight as quickly as possible for everybody. And I do like to banter a little bit, but I think I burned my banter time by being here a little bit late. We had a great get together yesterday out here in the Hill Country. There were about 20 Chatarians that showed up, and some older, I wouldn't call them old, because the pot doesn't want to call the kettle black, right? But they're familiar faces were here, and always good to see them. And we had some new folks drop by who were absolutely delightful, and it was a great gathering. There were about 20 of us. We had a lot of great food, and we had brisket, and we had some sausages and barbecue chicken, and what else? Oh yeah, I bought. I know it's sacrilegious, but I bought a pork steak. I bought two of them, and they were actually the absolute hit of the evening were the pork steaks, because I grilled them on mesquite, and I did this peach jam glaze on the pork steaks with some Thai chili. It was quite good. So it was a great event, and big thanks to Dr. Joan for helping pull everything together. And didn't get a chance to thank her publicly at the event, but I'm thanking her right now to the world. So thank you, lovely and talented one. It was a great event, and couldn't have done it without you. Okay, so we got that bit. We got that part out of the way. It was cool, man. There was the new people. The new people were really great. So one of the families is a refugee family from California. They got the memo. They got the hell out of Dodge, and the father of the mother of this family, tight little unit, has a serious interest in astrology, and I think he did his dissertation on the astrology of Chaucer. How about that? And he's I think was he a war vet, maybe a Korean war vet to boot. So I'm going to try to have him on the show. You know, you meet people every now and then, and all of a sudden, like there's a cool pickup. It's like, wow, really? Your dad did that? That's awesome. Let's have him on. So that was great. And then another, I can tell this. I can say this. So another new Chatarian, which came over through the High Vibe portal, through David's portal, and came out yesterday. And she's an artist, like a visual artist, and does videography and all kinds of really cool stuff, right? And I swear to God, this is true. And you'd have to see it to both believe it and appreciate it. She's doing a fine art book on vaginas. And she showed us this absolutely stunning fucking art picture of this up close vagina. And you would think, oh no, hey, no, really, trust me here. This is like, breaking avant-garde ground, and like really intimate photos, right? So that was, you find out things about people. It's like she's a regular, designer, artist, videographer, but then, has a more kind of intense avant-garde side. So that was really cool. And so it was a great day. And we helped celebrate this weird, wonderful, wild country that we call the United States of America, which doesn't always feel very united at times. And I did a big show on that on Friday. And I went through my process with it and where I am. We're going to look at the Pluto return for the US tonight. That's going to happen. So we're going to try to figure out and clock where we are right now in space and time, which is pretty strange, actually, but also in a lot of ways hopeful, because there are people waking up. You know, we're seeing this incredible acceleration of people wanting to understand and express, truth. And when you get into truth, there is no, you can't really cut any corners. And once you get into it, everything gets put up to the rest of the world. The extreme example of that is like looking at people who are theoretically truth speakers or truth tellers, and then seeing whether or not they measure up to what your idea of what the truth should be. And there is some of that's going on. There's a lot of gradations of that. And I definitely, I want to get back into the writing mode. I've been thinking about writing a piece on the Neptunian prophets of YouTube, because, oh, look who's here. Come on over here. Oh, whoa. Hey, you're out of control. Look who's here. The orange one. He's got to get on. And trust me, he's got plenty of distractions tonight. If he didn't want to be here, he didn't have to be here. But he chose to come in, and now that is an American fucking cat right there. Look at him. That is an American cat. Yep. You remind me of Morris the cat a little bit. Although Morris the cat he was a little entitled. Morris was kind of an ass. Oh, he was always like, oh, you're going to feed me that again. Morris the cat was a yacht rocker. I can tell you that right now. He was a yacht rocker. Morris the cat listened to Michael McDonald. What do you listen to? Cat Scratch Feeder. Ted Nugent's going to be here on the 24th. I've never seen Ted Nugent. Although I would have liked to have seen Ted Nugent around 1974. That would have been a good Ted Nugent. Sagittarius, by the way. The Motor City Madman. Yeah. You're the Hill Country Hellcat. Yeah, you are. We need some cat heroes. I think you might be one of them for the new America. Yeah. So anyway, it was a great day yesterday. It was an affirmative day. Yes, I know. It was affirmative for you too. You got so much attention yesterday, didn't you? People, oh, Jasper. Oh, he's so cute. There he is. There's Jasper. We see him on the show. Yeah. Yes, I know. I think we celebrated your birthday, didn't we? You're a Taurus. Yes. Yeah, you're a Taurus. You are really talkative. Yeah, I know. What do you want to say to the world? Anything else besides that? Oh, okay. All right. Well, it was great. So here we are. We're present, accounted for. Hope everybody's having a wonderful weekend, that you're spending it with people you love, and that there is something. And again, I had to work through the synthetic values of what this whole American thing has been about, and I am redeemed. I was talking about the Neptunian prophets of YouTube, I'm going to write about that. That's a piece I want to write about, because when you write something, it's very different than speaking into a microphone, which is not bad. I mean, it's okay. It allows for kind of a spontaneous stream of consciousness, but writing, there's a whole other, it engages a different part of the brain. It use different language, different phraseology, sentences look different. So it's communication, but it's a different type of communication. I used to write a lot more than I do now. In fact, I hardly ever write unless it's less than 245 characters on Twitter. But that's kind of how the world has evolved, right? We're symbols. I'm a symbol of how this world has evolved because we're doing this right now. But yeah, here we are. And let me see if there's anybody in chat. We may have a kind of a low number because it's the night before 4th of July. And I'm sure some people, sort of bailed out. Before I do that, though, before I go to chat, let me show you. Let me see if I can find this page on my website, because I had to restart the computer so that I wouldn't look like I was I wasn't going to what's the word I'm looking for? Looked like it was all dubbed, right? Didn't want to do that. Okay, where are we now? Where are we? See the post, come on. Oh man. Don't tell me. There we go. All right, so this is what it looks like. Let me update it. Let me view this post. There we go. All right, so this is the post. Let me show you what we got here. This is for the event. It's right there, Harvest Moon 4, October 14, 16, Kerrville, Texas, with the Leo King and more. I'm working on the more part. So here we go. There's all the verbiage you need, right? And there he is, the man, David Palmer. And not only is he going to be talking astrology, but he's going to be twisting some beats and some loops and some sine waves and some pulse generation. So David's an electronic musician. I think he's got an album or two out on Beatport, which is a digital distributive electronic music. Anyway, he's going to do that too. So you get a double dose of the Leo King. And it's taking place right by this lovely river. This is the Guadalupe River. And it is actually right behind the hotel that we'll be staying at. So it gives you, and that's, by the way, that's not that too far afield from what it looks like here during the autumn, because you get the foliage happening. We don't have a lot in Texas, but we do get some. And one of our grand old oak trees here. And here's all the details. If you want to get a room, there's a number right there. If you want to share a room, because there are singles and doubles. We've opened up 11th House Astrology with Robert Phoenix over on Telegram. And if you want to see if you can share a room with somebody, that's a good place to connect. And that's where a lot of Chatarians hang out and talk about the world. Let's see. So that is a nighttime picture of the hotel. We got there are two pools there. And where we are is right over there. We have I think we have one of the best rooms, because we've been there. This is our 4th year. And the first 2 years, I guess it was the first year, we were in this other room. And it was more kind of like a box. It was a big box. And then I think the second year they moved us into this other room, which is more round, and it's really self-contained, because we also have, it's a place where we eat dinner too. Not that room itself, but the room adjacent to it is where we eat dinner. So for the whole weekend, we have a really self-contained place to go to for the talks and for our group meals, of which you get 4. So they're catered from there at the hotel. They have a guy who's a really, really good cook. And it's a hill country inspired cuisine. So we have Tex-Mex on Friday night. And then on Sunday, I know it sounds like it's not great, but he did this hill country German dinner last year. It was as good as anything that we've had there, and all the food is really good. And because I asked him, I said, "Hey, can you do anything with German food?" And Jana, who is the manager there, she said, our chef has been wanting to do a German meal for a long time. He's trained in cooking German food. He'll be so excited. So he busted it out, and it was incredible, like Jaeger schnitzel and red cabbage, the warm red cabbage. It's just incredible, right? Like let's roll that back. Let's roll that again. And so we're going to get that. And it was such a big hit. They've put it on the menu now, and a number of other groups have requested it. So that's cool, right? And you can reserve your room. Now, if you reserve your room, you're not going to, you won't suffer any penalty if you cancel. But I suggest you reserve your room because they're going to go. Once David gets a hold of this and sends it out to his group, it's going to be a cascade. So you're getting a lot here, and I have some surprises planned too, which I can't talk about yet, but I have some surprises planned. So it's going to be for 3 days, $711. That's the Leo King, myself, some surprises, 3 dinners, 1 brunch. You get snacks, you get coffee, you get tea, and you get, I think, a solid gold memory. And the whole idea here is this is Aquarian. We're working on an Aquarian theme. So when David and I talked about this, that's what we, that I put it on the table. Say, hey man, let's do something Aquarian. We want to, have this event be like it's like a dandelion, right? We blow that dandelion. Each little spore is like somebody, including ourselves, at this event. And then we go off into the world, and we're alchemized, we're transformed, we're ready to take a vision of hope in our understanding and experience of what the Aquarian age could be. Because that's what I see these things as. They're like 3-day temporary autonomous zones where a lot of strangers come together, bond super quickly, create like almost an instantaneous family and community. And then these bonds like take hold, and people are connected as a result of this. So every time we do it, it gets a little stronger, and people get a little more kind of networked up. But it's not anything official. Like there's no official thing. That's the beautiful thing about it, which is very Aquarian. It's nothing official. It just happens. And whatever happens, like outside of the event with people, it just happens. I have nothing to do with it. I just kind of set the stage, and people connect, and then they form their own relationships and bonds. And I'm in the mix too. Like I've met a lot of people through this experience. And today we had some friends over, one of whom is a new friend I've known for, I think, a little less than 2 years now. And then another one was around, for the first event, and has been like everyone since then, and knew that person previously on Facebook. So it's really amazing how these relationships, bond and forge. So anyway, if you wait until August 15th, though, that price is going to go up to $800. So I suggest you get in on the 7-Eleven there. That's what I suggest. So you can cancel up until September 15th, but you'll have to pay a $100 cancellation fee for that. But at least you'll be able to cancel. After September 15th, I can't do any refunds because by that time they've bought the food and everything's kind of set, right? We're going to be meeting in less than a month. So you got three days here, or 3 dates before August 15th. And then if you chicken out and don't want to go, or something happens before September 15th. Okay. If for some reason that some act of God happens, and God forbid you get into an accident along the way or something, right? You talk to me, I'll give you your money back, right? Minus $100. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, if it's an accident and you're in the hospital, I'll give you your money. That's not a big deal. But we try to keep it as clear as possible. Anyway, there's the little pay now button, and we're off and running. There it is. And the link should work. Let me just try this. Let me do this, and let me try a different tab. See what happens. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Right there. All right, so I'm going to put that in the chat. And when I go in the chat, I'm going to say hello to everybody. And thank you all for being here. There she is. The doctor. Lovely and talented one. Benito. What's going on, Benito? Good to see you again. SL Sully, hello. Misbehaving too. Mazumink, checking in. Susie Gemini, always a pleasure to see both of you. Garrett Brooks. Garrett Brooks is here. Carrie Rose is here. EB, hello, EB. There's Ryan, my man Ryan. Let's see who else we have. Beth Berry, Kabuki Theater. MLMCI. Happy Independence Day. Hanging Laundry's here. I like that. My parents used to use this phrase, paper hanger. Paper hanger. I always thought I knew what that meant. I was like, I'd shake my head. Yeah, paper hanger. I'm not sure what paper hanger means, but I'm sure some of you do, and you'll probably put it in the chat. I know Tom does that. PMSO, what's going on? Where's the LLC part? Beyond late, different time slot. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry, Ryan. I got crushed on the website. Heidi Kit, what's going on, Heidi Kit? Scriber Persia's here. Checking in, Miss Nikki. Hello, Miss Nikki. Love a Scorpio. We love you back. Neo, Sky Gypsy 333. Good to see you. Dr. Duke, yo. The Cosmic Baby is in the house. Sammy Walker, where's Hill Country? It's in Texas. It's about, where I am is about 55 miles west of Austin. Michelle Lee, first time posting. All right. It's our first time reading. Don't disappoint us, Michelle. You got to hold up your end of the bargain here. No, I'm sure you're fine. Erica Emoti, what's going on, Erica? We're all hanging in there. Hey, there's Lana Anderson. Hi, Lana. Nice to see you here. There he is, the Southwest Florida Real Estate Realtor of the Year, Lewis Walden. He's here. Nevad, 17 Astrology. I just started 11th House Academy course. Right on. Good. Excellent. I do have that course. That's available. Leela, 1127. She's here, and she's in Ontario, Canada. Rocking the Canadian flag. Kabuki Theater, you will eat the bugs. Well, we got plenty of crickets here. We got plenty of crickets and plenty of grasshoppers. And I think I might invest in a farm. I might get ahead of the curve on that. Jay, George O'Keeffe type vagina art. And no, this is photography. Wasn't George O'Keeffe was she did like the paintings, right? The big paintings, like the big tulipy vagina like paintings. Did she do that? This is like high art, cool black and white stuff. Like, wow. One of my favorite topics, U.S. Pluto return. We're going to get into it. Liz Atwell's here. How you doing, Liz? the wonder from down under. We got my man, Mr. Misaki, the Doge Master. Yeah, I know. I know. You've met him. Yeah, he likes you. He liked you. You remember him, right? Okay, who else? Michelle on Wheels. She's checking in. Hey, Michelle. The old Capricornian world rejected me when I went back to my hometown this weekend. I realized that, as strange as it may sound, the new Aquarian world will be my new home. Time only moves one way. We're in the midst of a change. I mean, it's a significant change. And sometimes you have an option with the change. And sometimes you're, running with the changes. But things are going to change. Trust me, they're going to change. And I think the way that the change will happen has a lot to do with intentionality. Intentionality isn't just some magic phrase, but it also has to do with how you apply yourself on a daily basis. If you have the right intentionality with the right action, it's not much that can stop you. So if you can bring those two things together, and even if for some reason, the world goes to hell in a handbasket, and we have to live with that or not, you can rest assured that you got your mileage worth. You got your money's worth out of the thing. And you left it all out there. You laid it all on the table. If you do that, nobody's going to cheat you out of this experience. All right, we got Arlene Vega. What's happening? Good to see you. Who else do we have? Was Rosie old? No, she wasn't that old. She was maybe 11 or 12. Russell Gill's here. I fear that everyone will wake up at once and burn down the grocery store. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, there is that potential for pitchforks and torches. There is that potential. All of a sudden, everybody wakes up and they're all fucking pissed. They're super pissed, and they have their Peter Finch moment. I'm mad as hell and I can't take it anymore. Yeah, that could happen. That could be crazy. Yacht Rock rules. Yeah, so we've been doing this thing, Yacht Rock or Not, called Yacht or Not. And we were listening to Sirius at the Yacht Rock station, 311. Interesting, 311. And they had a Fleetwood Mac song on there, Tango in the Night. It's like, that is not Yacht Rock. And by the way, they used to call it soft rock. Morris the Cat was entitled. He was an entitled little fuck, wasn't he? Uh-oh. 9 lives. Ooh. Uncle Ted. Uncle Ted is awesome. I saw Ted in 1978. That's a good time for Ted Nugent. That's a good period. It's, punk rock's starting to come in. I think you're right there, kind of at the tail end of that kind of initial Amboy Dukes burst. Stranglehold, Cat Scratch Fever. Sagittarius, excellent rock guitarist. Sagittarius. I like that. Keith Richards is a Sagittarius, isn't he? Some would say he's an excellent guitarist. Greg Allman is a Sagittarius, but he did not play guitar. Dwayne, his brother, on the other hand, whoa, that guy could jam. Jasper is the rock star. Who else do we have here? Who am I missing out on? Let's see. Oh, look at this. Michelle Lisa took my girls to see Uncle Ted when they were teens. I like Teebs. Teenager was a phrase, I think, that was invented by Tavistock. Pretty sure, because it gave them a demographic to sell to. They were their own unique brand. But I like Teebs. His tone is hilarious. Jasper's tone, I know. He steals the fucking show. Tony Iommi is a Sagittarius. And with that, I would drop my mic, but I can't do that because it's attached to this. And it would make a large sound. So Randy Rhodes is a Sagittarius. I'll meet your Tony Iommi and raise you a Randy Rhodes. How about that? So is Ozzy Osbourne, by the way. Kelly B's here. What's going on, Kelly? We're just scrolling through. Here's Fran, CC Jones. What's going on, Fran? Ms. Behaving said, I saw Uncle Ted right out on the stage on a white buffalo. Oh, that must have been dramatic. That's a moment. From New Zealand, what's going on, Gaia Dance? Hey, there's my cousin, Sandra Wells. Miss Aquarius in the house tonight, and a fine poet she is as well. Maria P. Fair, nice to have you join us. LMM, this is a great group. Let's see, Victoria V, what's going on, Double V? There's my man, Charles Mazak. Speaking of Buffalo, Bliss Lee, she's here. What a group. Marissa, so excited for it's going to be a good one. I'm telling you, it's going to be a good one. Yeah, David is a good dude. I've told my David story before. You know, when I first came across the persona of the Leo King, I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Who does he think he is? Right. Swear to God. And then I started to watch him. I'm like, man, this motherfucker works his ass off. He works his ass off. And I'm like, all right, mad props, respect, Leo King. And then I think it was a couple of years ago, like he just started showing up in chat. Like, okay. And we clicked. So I'm really looking forward to it. Paper Dragon is here. What's going on, Paper Dragon? Jonathan Picone looks like it's going to be a good time for sure. Let's see. Who else do we have? Anybody else? Mickey Kane. What's going on, Mickey? Hope you're doing well tonight. Dandelions are infinite wishes. The cool meetups I'd like to attend are either in Texas or Florida this year. The universe is telling me, get out of Wisco. You might be able to catch a ride from Wisco. You never know. You never know. Let's see. Who else do we have? Hey, Cheeky Monkey's here. How about that? Way to go, Cheeky. Good to see you. I've listened to too much Leo King. Oh, David is highly entertaining. He's informative, insightful, and entertaining. All of it. And Lori Powers, you finally made it. Okay, we've been waiting for you, Lori. Ted was my net. How people have so many Ted Nugent stories. So many Ted Nugent stories. Do any of you know who Carol is? Our friend Carol. Carol's from Michigan. She's got a lot of Ted Nugent stories. A lot. All right, let's get into the chart of the moment. Let's kick this thing into some astrology. Let's check out where everything is. Let's see if we get a handle on this fucking world. All right. Give me one sec here. Got to make sure my settings are right. Go change that. Let's do that. Let's do this. Jasper, are you restless? Jasper's on the prowl. Jasper, I don't think you've ever caught anything. Maybe a cricket. That's possible. Okay, here we go. The problem with these yacht rock songs is they fucking get stuck in your head. I have one of those. I think it's like a duet with somebody, Yvonne Elliman. Oh my God. It's too much. Okay. What do we got here? All right. We got Capricorn rising tonight. We usually start off with Sag rising since we're earlier, right, Jasper? Let's throw this up on the big screen. Well, I know. You should be happy you're not Morris the cat. He was not liked by people. Okay, here we go. Sun in Cancer, 12 degrees. Let's see, where are we? This is really weird. So it's a Sun square Jupiter, is that right? Where are we? Yes, Sun square Jupiter. I know. Moon just went into Virgo, 6 degrees. Is that right? Or where are we? The moon? Yeah, 6 Virgo. It was in Leo earlier today. So it's going to be an interesting 4th of July with the moon in Virgo. I kind of like the moon in Leo a little bit better for 4th of July. Fireworks and all. The moon in Virgo is a critical day for Independence Day. By the time the moon wheels around, it will be in sextile with Cancer. So I think it's what's interesting now is that there's the United States is so dry right now. Today we're driving down the road and they were, hairspray in the sky. And normally you don't see that this time of year. Normally this time of year, they've gone south. They've taken the bug spray south. That happens. But they were back today and they had a lot of bug spray. And it's like, what is going on here? We've been incredibly dry. So a lot of places are canceling fireworks. Normally here in Hill Country, we have great fireworks because it's so dry. They canceled them this year. A couple of years ago, though, they canceled the parade because of COVID. So what they did, it was like Idiocracy world. They had the people in the parade stationary. It was down at the airport where they had a bunch of room. And then you got in your car and you drove around the parade in an oval. I mean, it's just bizarre. Everything was inverted, right? That was a symbol of inversion. And that's when we had the true node in Gemini and the south node in Sagittarius. It was like, but they had the fireworks, even though they had the reverse. They actually called it the reverse parade. Is that symbolic or what? So tomorrow the moon will be in closer sextile with the sun. So it's a practical moon. It's a practical, like, okay, we can't set any fireworks off. Now, if you were to take, a lot of people don't work tomorrow. So if it's not too hot, tomorrow is actually one of those days you can get a lot of work done. So if you have little projects around the house or you want to catch up on things, that little productive Virgo moon can be quite helpful. So we're in first quarter moon and you can make adjustments, changes, some adaptability with that, especially with the mutable moon. Mutable moon, you can make those adaptations. We had a nice little Shiva moon the other night. And I think Virgo and Cancer work really well. I mean, it's the 4th of July where more than likely you're not going to get shit-faced. Because guess what? You're going to have to work on Tuesday for a lot of people. So they'll, a little restraint. And if you partied, you probably partied yesterday or maybe even at some point tonight or Friday night. So Monday feels a lot more like an off day, work day with that moon. Now it will square. And it's kind of an interesting moon because how emotions unfold as they relate to other people don't always line up, especially with Venus and Gemini, where there's duality and two people might have different takes on, the emotional content for their relationship. The moon in Virgo is critical. Astrologically, I think it's one of the harder moons. I've said it before. It's not an easy moon. It's a moon that's kind of nervous. And usually it represents a difficult mother, a judgmental mother. And both my parents had Virgo moons. And I can tell you both of their mothers were incredibly judgmental. And what was weird is that my mother was born on a Virgo full moon. My father was a Leo. The moon had just gone into Virgo after he was born. So they had like almost like the new moon, full moon version of Virgo. It was kind of interesting. But it's a challenging moon. So tomorrow, as it moves closer into this square with Venus, you could be dealing with mixed kind of mixed agendas or mixed emotions inside of a partnership, with the emphasis being critical, because that's how the Virgo moon rolls. And it's interesting because we're about ready to have Mars transit out of Taurus. So the moon it's in trine with Mars. It's one of those really interesting trines where Mars is in a different element, right? It's a fire Mars, intense. I'm going to miss Mars in Aries. I always like it when Mars is in Aries, except when they're throwing a revolution in the country. That's when I really didn't like Mars in Aries. Although for me personally, I got fired up, but apparently a lot of other people with a different idea got fired up as well. So I'm going to miss Mars in Aries. Mars in Aries, I'm going to miss you. And Mars and Taurus is going to come around, and things should slow down a little bit with Mars and Taurus. But once the momentum of Mars and Taurus takes off, if it can take off, and it will, because it's going to wind up conjuncting Uranus in the true node, that's going to be a hell of a conjunction. I got to tell you, that's going to be just a hell of a conjunction. And it's also going to be squaring Saturn. Let's take a look at when that is. Anytime I go down that path, they're like, oh, when's that going to happen? When's that going to happen? Well, we're going to look at it. And then what we'll try to do is interpret some meaning from said square without laying on the doom sauce too thick. Although, we have to pay attention. Okay, here we go. All righty. So that's going to be just right after the 4th of July. That feels appropriate, doesn't it? Like theoretically, after the fireworks are blown off, even though there won't be any. No, I'm sure some places will have fireworks, but it's like the denouement moment. There was this one time when I was doing tarot readings in San Francisco on the 4th of July. It was down by Fisherman's Wharf. It was a great day. It was a totally great day. It was one of those days in San Francisco that you frame. You frame that day, because you don't see nights like that in San Francisco on the 4th of July. Warm, clear sky. And this was 1996. And I spent the entire day on Fisherman's Wharf, like reading tarot cards. And I used to do 15, 20 readings in a day. And I got high off of it. I loved it. I was like, don't you get tired? Like, no, I get jazzed. And it was such a great, at the end of the day, you put in your work. I didn't get rich, but it was not bad. Some days were really good. I mean, back then, there were times I probably make $200 in a day, which for 1996 wasn't bad. But I had to work a lot though to do that. And then they had a concert with the Chambers Brothers, who were kind of old at the time, but man, they were still kick ass. Free concert. Went to go see the Chambers Brothers. Of course, the big hit Time, the whole Time thing. And then I was so like charged by the whole experience. And then I got to walk out down by Fort Mason. They have these areas, and like all the fireworks are happening down there. It was just one of those places where you're right place, right time. And, my head was like wide open, and it felt like there was like the sky was my head. And the fireworks were going off, literally and figuratively in my mind. It was great. It was a great 4th of July. And I think everybody has some 4th of July stories that they can relate to. But this 4th of July, there's almost like this climax that happens with Mars. This last, flash of fire and intensity, and we are dealing with some extreme conditions. So would it be out of the question if there is a fire? Maybe. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. But then everything shifts on Tuesday. It's like we go into another space on Tuesday with Mars and Taurus. And the challenge with Mars and Taurus is that sometimes it feels like you're walking in oatmeal with Mars and Taurus. Like you're in a bowl of thick oatmeal. You're just trying to walk through. It's slogging is the word I would use with Mars and Taurus. I think it's detriment, if I'm not mistaken. So while Aries gives us the impetus to keep going, to move forward, right? That's the nature of Aries. I talked about Coppola being in Aries on Friday's show and just meeting all these roadblocks, these impediments along the way. Maybe I should look at this chart tonight. Anyway, that's not how Taurus operates. Taurus needs motivation. The motivation for Aries is to, get out of the fire, or, advance your own cause or interest and meet any obstacle along the way. Taurus has different motivation. Taurus is more about the financial motivation. Taurus is Mars and Aries, even though it can be self-directed, it does not have the same association with self that Taurus does. Taurus is what's in it for me. What do I get out of it? And it's not the accolades. It's not like Mars and Leo. You get an accolade in Mars and Leo. Oh, thank you. You're king for a day. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh, this is wonderful, right? You get an accolade with Mars and Leo, and you can be good with it for maybe a week. But Mars and Taurus, or Taurus in general, wants money. It wants material goods. It wants the thing that balances out. Very different with Mars and Taurus. And I think with the price of gas and the increase in just about everything else, Mars and Taurus is going to need some serious reasons why it should be engaged or should be involved. People, no, I'm not going there. It costs too much for gas, right? That's a Mars and Taurus moment. So but once Mars and Taurus picks up some steam, it's like a freaking rhinoceros. But we're looking at a particular date. And the date that we're looking at is the conjunction with the true node and also Uranus. And that date, for all of those who are keeping score at home, is not long from now. It's August 1st, which happens to be Jerry Garcia's birthday, a Leo guitarist. So that's going to be an interesting time. To say the least, it will be an interesting time because at that time, also, we're dealing with, guess what? A square with Saturn. Saturn's retrograding. It's at 22 degrees that day. And Uranus really goes through kind of a long station process at 1855. That's on the 21st of August. That's an interesting, really starts on the 20th of August. So 820 Uranus stations at 1855, goes retrograde at 1855, and is at 1855 from the 29th of August, or sorry, the 20th of August, all the way to the 30th of August. So 10 days, it going retrograde on the 24th. There's a lot of retrograde action this summer. We got Pluto retrograde, Neptune retrograde, Uranus goes retrograde on the 1855 on the 25th, right? That's the day. Goes retrograde on the 25th, and it stays at 1855 until the 29th. It finally retrogrades back to 1854, actually the 30th. So retrogrades back to 1854. On the 31st, we have Saturn retrograde. Hello, we got Jupiter retrograde as well. So all the outer planets this summer are retrograde. You know, we're in uncharted territory, socially, monetarily, leadership. So all these outer planets being retrograde during the summer, I think could be tricky, to say the least. You know, when Jupiter's in Aries, everybody talks about war, everybody talks about, you know, potential for the heightened amounts of violence and, you know, all the stuff that we generally talk about with Aries and Jupiter expanding it. But I could see where this retrograde period there could be a serious effort to curtail that, right? Because that's not how Jupiter operates. Jupiter operates through expansion, and Aries is forward. And when you get a retrograde Jupiter in Aries, it's a big retrograde because of what both the planet and, in this case, the sign are referring to. So, you know, we've seen the theater. We've seen the theater with guns and what would I say? The totemic ritual sacrifice of guns, self-defense, and gun culture. So with that retrograde, we might see more of that, which means that there's probably a possibility that we might be witnessing another event as well. Now, isn't it fascinating how these events occur? Because I remember right after this Buffalo thing, which I was looking at all this Buffalo symbolism at the time, and there was plenty of it, trust me. By the way, shout out to John Levi today. Did a great show today on breweries of all things. He went and looked at all these old breweries and how these breweries were another example of repurposing these old structures. John, if I had a beer, I'd drink to that. That was actually really good. Anyway, I was talking about this after the Buffalo thing. It was just right after the Buffalo thing. By the way, what happened to that guy? What happened to him? Down the memory hole. So I was on a Sunday night show and I said, well, what's next? We're going to have a school shooting. So they better get it in because schools are getting ready to close down for the summer. And guess what? Yep. I think it was 2 days later, Uvalde. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that wasn't anything astrological in as much as it was looking at patterns and seeing patterns and knowing that if there was an agenda afoot, then, excuse me, they needed to seal the deal. All right, so that happens. And then what? And then we have this, you know, all the press, all the publicity, Matthew McConaughey from Uvalde and his wife with the green sneakers. Those sneakers looked they hadn't been worn a day in their life, by the way, I have to say. And going to Washington, D.C. and giving big speeches. And then we have some new things coming out around the Second Amendment, red flag laws, and some other, at first glance, cosmetic alterations. But this is how these things happen. You know, there's an event. There's almost always an event. And then the thing happens. So when I was in Atlanta, it was the same year, 1996, and I was doing tarot readings. I've told this story before. I was I was near the Olympic Village when that bomb went off. And I just left. I went back. I was reading tarot cards. I went back to my van. And by the time I put everything away and I think I went to get a beer or something, I got to the bar and, all hell had broken loose. And I'm like, oh, wow. And then you have the Richard Jewell thing. And then what happened right after that is that the Clinton administration passed the anti-terror bill. That happened right after that. It was like, wow, isn't that convenient? You have the anti-terror bill. It's ready to go. It's been, floating around, but it's ready to go. And then you have this event and it's like, we got to vote on this. And that's what happens. So this is how reality is shaped, not only through trauma, but through the stagecraft and planning and management of public events, so that the administrators of this reality can use that to try to administrate reality with more authority. This is what happens. So when we have Jupiter retrograde, I think it's pretty significant. And you have all these outer planets really kicking in August, going through their retrograde motion. Now, retrogrades aren't always bad. They're not always bad. But you throw Mars in there with the Uranus in Taurus, not quite retrograde yet, and the true node in Taurus. When we think of Taurus, we think of money. We totally think of money. Here, let me show you the dates. Just realized. Let me give you a bird's eye view of the ephemeris. So it's right here. This is where Mars is at 18 degrees. We can see Uranus at 18 degrees, and we can see the true node right there. It's retrograde. True node goes back and forth. That's the nature of it. Retrograde direct, retrograde direct. Then we can see Uranus going retrograde here, and then the station at 1855 to right about there, right? By that time, Mars has moved into the trickster, Gemini. Boom, 21st. Yeah, this is this very weird and interesting period this is kind of like the Trump zone when Mars, and I'm not here to do any like Q coding, but Trump has his sun Uranus and true node in Gemini. Mars is almost like an activator for that, and then it goes retrograde later in the year. It goes retrograde on the 31st of October. Anyway, what could we expect with Mars Uranus true node conjunction? Well, I think money is going to go sideways, because remember now, Mars is in its detriment in Taurus, and Uranus is swift and it's sudden. It's very quick. I could see people trying to get their money out, get their money out of their financial institutions. I can see that. There could be a bank run. There could be a run on precious metals or whatever it is that you think has value during that time. And we could be going through another phase where, people are looking around and saying, well, I need more of that. I need more of that. I need more of that. So you have the prepper blitz. You have the people that haven't prep blitz. Those are the people that are dangerous, because when we get that far down the line and the shit starts hitting the fan, at that point where we are, good luck. Like, good luck, because that's a recipe for panic and mass hysteria. Just with the Mars Uranus true node, because the true node is going to get our attention with those resources, because that's what we should all be looking at and paying attention to right now. In value, like what has value for you? That's really important. That's very, very important. And so you can change it up a little bit. You want to look at where Mars is in your chart, where Taurus is in your chart, and you could make an applied effort to have a different relationship with value. if you valued, money all of these years, and Uranus comes along and you're like, I don't know, Scrooge McDuck or whatever, right? And you don't have any friends. Well, that Mars may get you motivated about something different, because that's how Uranus operates. It flips the script. So if you're somebody who's really valued like material goods and physical security, and you look around and you're alone, like how much value is that? There's no value in that. There is value to being alone, but in a world where it's getting seismic and reality is bouncing, look, it's better to be alone than being with the wrong people. Let me just say that. If you're with the wrong people, it's not a great situation. But it's better to be with the right people than it is to be alone. And with that Mars-Uranus conjunction, people are going to be dealing very quickly with their value systems. And because Mars in Taurus is slow, when it comes in and hits Uranus, and it speeds up exponentially. And it goes from, trying to keep pace and trying to pay your bills and trying to, stay in the game. And all of a sudden it hits Uranus and you're thrown through the hyper accelerator and you're scrambling all of a sudden. Try not to be in scramble mode. There can be some creative potential with Mars Uranus, but it's going to be in places you're not going to be. It's going to be places where other people aren't looking with Mars Uranus. So I think that's a place that you may want to start there right now, because Mars goes into Taurus on Tuesday. Start your quest to find value where other people are not finding value. Like I've got a bunch of grasshoppers and crickets here. Nobody's really valuing them yet. I feel like if I can find a nice candied grasshopper recipe, I might be able to cash in on that. So that's a good place to start. Try to find value where people are not really understanding where value is. Because when Mars does hit Uranus, all of a sudden it's like, bang, there's value here. And the universe is at times a really juicy mystery novel to be solved, right? If you have any inclination for problem solving, trying to crack the code of reality, get closer to the truth, hack some things, this is a pretty intense and wild time to be alive, because you get to road test a lot of shit. Let me see what the Sabian symbol is for 19 Taurus. Let's see if we can find that. I love the Sabian symbols. Especially when you just get this kind of hit. All right, let's check this out. All right, so we're going to go 19 Taurus. This is a good one. This is a good one. I think it's appropriate, and I'm going to give you my my interpretation as well as Dane Rogers. 19 Taurus, a new continent rising out of the ocean. Keynote, the surge of new potentiality after the crisis. I'm telling you, this could be a very interesting time right around the 1st of August. Remember I said, try to find value where other people aren't finding value. The surge of new potentiality after the crisis. The symbol need hardly be commented upon. When the mind has been emptied and light has been called upon to purify the consciousness, freed from its attachment of contaminations, a new release of life can emerge out of the infinite ocean of potentiality, the virgin space. What will it be used for? Because this is a 4th stage symbol. We find in it a suggestion of how to approach whatever new phase of life has been not only hoped for, but actually confirmed. The technique is simply to allow the infinite potential to operate in unconstrained spontaneity. That's interesting. This means to have reached a state in which the conscious rational ego is no longer a controlling factor. Like Uranus will play a role in that. When Uranus is activated, you're operating potentially from a different realm of consciousness. It's not always linear. It's not always planned. It has a lot to do with being able to dance in the chaos and to find novelty and innovation in those places. So I think it's a really interesting time. I mean, there's also the potential for something very literal here. You know, we could be dealing with something really seismic. There's a lot of seismic activity. We could be dealing with some volcanic activity out of that, you know, pretty simple new land formation, all very Taurus. The other thing that I think is this also happened. This exists metaphorically, but also in potentially a exposition of a parallel reality. Okay, so metaphorically, the new land is like if you wanted to start a community, or it's funny, John Levi was talking about starting a community today. That was interesting. That would be interesting. Being in a community with John Levi would be interesting. He's a Taurus too. So, you know, maybe these celestial vibrations are emanating down to John in Utah. And he said, but I don't want to do it here because this place is godforsaken. But that's part of it. You know, if you have plans to do something like this, like if that's what you value, and by the way, you're gonna need it in this time. If you're gonna try to get through this period and everything seems to be in some kind of entropic collapse. And we're going to get to the US chart, by the way. We're going to get there tonight. But if that's happening and you feel like you want to hang out and create something different and new with other people, this is a great symbol. It's a really great symbol. Like strike out. It's the new land. And it's your creative response to the pressure. Because again, theoretically, you know, the earth is engaged in an act of pressure, right? So this is, you know, we have our own pressure in our own lives. So this would be a strategy and an action as it results to the manifestation of pressure in one's life. David Spangler, who many people believe is a Luciferian, but he actually, I mean, I'm not going to debate his connection with that kind of esoteric world. But he wrote a book one time on pressure, which was really amazing, and how pressure is actually a spiritual experience. Like pressure is the thing that kind of galvanizes you, cooks you, forces you to do something different. And he talked about pressure as a spiritual force. And I think a lot of people are experiencing high degrees of pressure. That Mars-Uranus conjunction with the true node, that could be a significant release of pressure as well, which we see with things like earthquakes. I mean, theoretically, that's what happens, right? Tension, pressure, plate, pressure, and bang, there's a release of pressure. And we're also going through an incredibly dry period, and Lake Mead is in serious trouble, really serious trouble. This is the South Node in Scorpio, and the water is declining, right? It's receding. What are they? They're finding like dead bodies in Lake Mead and stuff like that. People that have just, you know, here's your South Node in Scorpio. So that's pressure. Like there are people living in the Southwest right now, Arizona, part of New Mexico, California, clearly, that are feeling another wave of pressure due to what's happening with Lake Mead. If they can't fix this thing pretty quickly, which they could if they wanted to, they've got the weather tech to do it. Trust me, they have the weather. They could fire that weather tech up and kickstart a front. I haven't looked at the fronts for a while, but when I used to live in California, I would watch them. Right, I would watch them come right in from the coast, and they would just be moved around. And they would go south, and they'd come through like the southern part, the very, very southern part of California. and then they would come through the Southwest, and a lot of them were going to Texas. And by the way, I saw that even after I moved from California. That was around 2013, 2014, where it's just incredibly wet in Texas. Like, what is going on here? There's always rain here? Because I just moved here. And I started watching the Doppler, and they were just forcing everything around the state of California. And California was going through this massive dry spell. So if this continues, the amount of pressure in the Southwest, it's pretty significant, right? Like they could go into a critical emergency zone right now. Could they relocate people? I don't know. I mean, if they call a state of emergency in that part of the country, they might do that. They might move people out of urban areas. Like, could they move? I think Phoenix is like maybe the 5th or 6th largest city in the country. Could they move a bunch of people from Phoenix? Could they do that? It's a big operation, but it's hitting a crisis point level. And again, we're dealing with pressure, we're dealing with tension. That is emotional and psychological pressure and tension. So, something's got to give, right? Something's got to. Now, the other piece around the new land or new continent arises out of the ocean is related to lands or bodies of the earth that we don't know about, that are potentially out there, right? Now, would that come into people's consciousness at that time? Would they realize that there was more to this place than we understand or know about? And in any case, this is a very interesting conjunction. And the square to Saturn is the square that I think is problematic. Now, remember, everything is retrograde. So when you go through a heavy retrograde phase with the outer planets, especially with Saturn and Pluto, that there's a potential for authority to assert itself, but asserting itself by taking something away. That could happen. That could definitely happen. And the other thing too, and I don't think we're going to be going through the vid any longer. But that said, we could be going through something similar to the vid. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, got to rein you in again. Like that could possibly happen with all those outer planets. Will people allow it with a Mars-Uranus conjunction in the true node? I don't think so. I think people will be pretty fired up around that. Okay, what else do we have? Let's go back to the chart of the moment. We did a little flyby with Mars-Uranus. Okay, what do we have here? Mercury-Saturn trine. That's cool. It's good for planning. 3 days from now, Mercury will be in Cancer. So Mercury's pretty cerebral, although it is in square with Neptune. There's a lot of tall tales being told with Mercury-Neptune square. But I think when Mercury goes into Cancer, at the 27th degree of Gemini, 27th and 28th degree of Gemini, because it'll still be in square with Neptune. That's crazy. Like you could hear the same story about the same event in a day, but it would be almost like two different outcomes of that story. It'll be like, that's kind of where we are right now. It's that pitch of weirdness. Be like, well, I just thought they said this about what just happened, like on a collective level. And it's one of those, it's a very unusual, well, I wouldn't say it's an unusual square. I mean, these squares happen, but when you get into Neptune squares, especially with Mercury, you get into the lying phase. People have Mercury Neptune squares. I've talked about this before. They're either generally well-intentioned, but at times naive. and believe what other people tell them when they should use more discernment with a Mercury Neptune square. Also, the imagination can play an overly active role here, and not always a good one with Mercury Neptune, right? The downside, I mean, the real bad program with Mercury Neptune squares in a chart is that the person who's speaking can convince themselves that they're telling the truth, and they're lying, flat out lying. And sometimes they'll even know that they're lying. Now, Mercury and Gemini, they may not know, right? It's kind of schizo. It's a schizo. I like Mercury Gemini. Don't get me wrong. It's brilliant, smart. But here, the Mercury Neptune square, it's almost like the individual believes that they're telling the truth. And in which case, they're really not. It's very confusing. The next few days with communication are going to be very confusing. Be very careful, especially with the mainstream media and to some extent even the alternative media. Be very careful what you listen to and how you process it, because there's such a high degree of confusion right now. And we're kind of off on the weekend. I'm sure if I went around and started poking around some stories, I could find some Mercury Neptune square fodder. But you know, when this thing speeds up, so we got tomorrow at 28 degrees, that's the crazy zone. 27 and 28. And I've talked about these degrees before. It's just before a planet changes signs. And when it gets to 0, it's brand new, right? It's the new star, the new formation. And at 27, 28, it's phasing, right? It's phasing. It's like a supernova. And then what happens? Bang, it goes to 29 and there's nothing left. It's like a black star. It's like a black hole. There's nothing there at 29. Nothing. The energy's gone. And then when it goes to 0, we have energy again. So those 27th and 28th degrees are tricky. So be careful what you listen to. And more importantly, be careful what you believe to be the truth. Now, there are immutable truths, but then we have a whole array of variants that are related to the truth. So just use your discernment. Now, Mercury is also in sextile with Mars. So that's the downside with that is that you may say something that you'll regret, because Mercury Mars sextiles happen lickety split, quick, lightning fast, right? Bang, bang, bang. You get that Neptune square. It's like, oh shit, I shouldn't have said that. So work through what you're going to say. Spontaneous is good. I like spontaneous, but work through what you're going to say. The other thing too is with a Mercury Neptune square, other people will say shit. And you'll go, what? What did you say? Oh, that was interesting. You felt very confident saying that, didn't you? Yeah. Well, guess what? You just tipped your hand yeah. So this is going to be an interesting 48 hours because we're dealing with mutable signs too. And you can see, I think it's stories. It's like stories changing very quickly. What just happened? 8 hours ago, that was a different story. And now it's another story. And now it's another story. So the next 48 hours is slippery. Well, today, tomorrow, right? The 4th, and then getting into Tuesday. And that's also when we go through the Mars change. So Mercury's going to be changing signs and Mars is going to be changing signs. And they'll still be in trine or sextile with each other, which is kind of interesting too. But the effect will be different. It'll be different. Mercury will still be in a bit of a square with Neptune, but it'll start to separate. The Mercury-Mars sextile, again, this is the middle of the week now. You can get a lot of shit done. If you're focused with Mercury and Cancer, and you need to be focused, you need to have your emotional content together so you can move forward. But that's a nice little boost because Cancer doesn't always move forward. That's not the mobility of Cancer, the motility of Cancer. But with Mars kicking in and bringing the motivation with Taurus, you get a lot done. I think this is, as far as this week goes, it looks pretty productive to me. Especially we've got this moon. I talked about this moon in Virgo, which is, I think, going to be pretty productive as well. So it may not be a flashy week on some level, but I think you can get some shit done. On another level, I think the potential for prevarication is way up there. It's like an 8 or a 9 on a 10 scale. So use your discernment skills this week. And the other thing too, with Mercury, Neptune, be very careful when you're driving. Very, very careful, because there are people out there who are fucked up, right? You got people that are fucked up, they're drinking, and you got a whole other group of people who, we've seen some accidents, haven't we? So be careful with that too. Watch your driving over the next 48 hours, especially if you're in a place where the Smokies are out looking for people to give tickets to. So that's another thing with the Mercury. You have to really use your diligence while you're traveling, especially in Gemini. So keep an eye out for that. Mars is coming out of the Pluto square, and that was interesting because we had it yesterday at the meetup, and I didn't really feel it. I didn't feel that Mars Pluto square intensity. Nobody killed each other here. That's good. And let me see. We did have a couple dust devils and knocked over one of my speakers, which did crack a pot outside, which I have to replace. But other than that, there was no, I didn't experience, for me personally, and in, our particular environment, I didn't experience that Mars Pluto square. At least I didn't. Although there were some pretty intense conversations going on, but nobody takes anything personally here. What else? Saturn. Yeah, Mercury's moving away from Saturn. So again, you'll have some focus, but it'll be a different kind of focus. And especially in Cancer, I could see this being a big week for prepping with Mercury going into Cancer and sextiling Mars and Taurus. It's like, okay, look at what just happened. Let's figure out how we're going to weather this storm. We get some inconjuncts going on too. The moon, I'm not so concerned about because that'll move out of phase. And Mercury looks like it's in an inconjunct with Pluto at 27 degrees. Very interesting. Look at that tomorrow as well. Mercury, Pluto inconjuncts. Pluto retrograde. Which one of our fearless leaders is going to say something that they're going to regret over the next 24 hours or 48 hours? That's going to be interesting. It'll be very interesting. My sense here, look to Tuesday and look to the quote unquote January 6th meetings, right? Mercury will be still in the zone for that inconjunct. So keep your eyes out for Tuesday, January 6th meetings. Who's going to say something that's going to be revelatory, especially with that square with Neptune going on? That'll be quite interesting. What sign is Liz Cheney? What is her sign? Let me see if I can find her sign. I've never looked at her chart. Gee, I wonder why. What is she? She's just odd. Oh my God. Okay. She's a Leo fire horse. Yikes. Back in the day in China, if your daughter was born under the year of the fire horse, they would drown her. True story. They didn't consider the female fire horses to be able to contribute anything of value uh, to their society. Now, some of you may out there may be a fire horse. I have no issues with fire horses, especially women fire horses. But I'm just giving you the Chinese tale. All right, let's check out Liz Cheney's chart. This is totally spontaneous. Taurus. She looks like a Taurus rising. So she's kind of a slug. She's got that slug vibe. Taurus rising. I can see that. True node in Taurus. So she's gone through her nodal return. What else? What are the big hitters here? 29 degrees Sagittarius. Liz, you got to tell the truth. The 29th degree is your cross to bear with that moon. Highest planet in her chart. Neptune in Scorpio. 7th house. What else do we have here? Mercury retrograde in Leo. Interesting. Jupiter in Cancer, Mars in Cancer. She's got she's got a Venus-Mars conjunction. She does look like dude looks like a lady sometimes and vice versa, right? Liz Cheney, she's got that vibe about her. She's got that kind of ambisexual, unisexual vibe about her with the Venus-Mars conjunction. What is it? 2nd house, 3rd house. Mars in the 3rd house is a tricky placement. It's quite restless. She's got a square with her sun, her Leo sun, and the Mercury retrograde. Interesting. Interesting. She's got a Moon Saturn square at 2929. Look at that. Moon Saturn square. People with Moon Saturn squares have a hard time asserting their independence. Very hard time. Neptune is getting closer to her Saturn. It's at 25. I could see her losing her election with a Neptune Saturn. It's a pretty close conjunction. By the time it's all said and done, just before Neptune goes into Aries, Liz Cheney's done. She's done. She will dissolve right off the political map. That will happen. When Neptune conjuncts her Saturn, it's already there. It is already there, and it squares her moon. And when you get into a moon square with Neptune, again, we get into the Neptune square. And, she can't be emotionally inauthentic, or she has to be emotionally honest. If she's emotionally dishonest, it could ruin her now. And I bet a lot of people wouldn't have a problem with that, right? But it could definitely ruin her. Saturn's up here, 10th house, Aquarius. So supposedly this would be a big time for her with Saturn there. If she played her cards a little bit better, she might be in a better position with Saturn there. And with Saturn retrograding, I don't think things are going all that well for her, just in terms of her political career. But, whatever. She's part of one of the dark power families of this country, the world. But I feel like this Neptune-Saturn conjunction, squaring her moon, it's kind of her undoing. That's what it feels like. It's her undoing, because she's not being emotionally honest. She's being emotionally dishonest. And usually when that happens, especially when the moon is like this high in the chart, like people figure it out. They smell it out. They'll see it. They'll sense it. And her moon is just right there on the cusp of the 9th. And in Placidus astrology, within 5 degrees, you begin to read the sign for the next house. So she wants to keep things secret with that moon in the 8th, but it's trying to come out, right? It's trying to come out, Liz. Just come out. You'll feel better for it. It'll heal you. All right, where's Uranus? Uranus is right there. So she's got this true node transit in her 1st house. So this is a really interesting exposition of how the true node works, because we're seeing her, right? She's front and center because of this whole Jan 6 thing. But is that always good? Is that always a good thing? Or are there other things going on? Like, hello, guess what? South Node conjunct Neptune in your seventh house, and you're cutting bad deals. That's what's going on. You're cutting bad deals. Saturn retrograding and squaring Neptune as well. This is gonna be a rough time for her. I don't think she's gonna be elected. Although you don't have to be a rocket science to figure that out. Yeah, Liz Cheney. That Mercury retrograde behind the sun. It's like here with the sun, right? This is Promethean Mercury. So she'll do things. She'll throw herself out there. She'll be an experiencer, but she always has to deal with the consequences of that. This is somebody who should really think before they act, but they can't do that. Not with this chart. No, not with this chart. And this is all weird too down here as well. Venus, Mars. Mars in the third house is kinky, by the way. Like that's a kinky kind of Mars in the third house, and especially with Venus Mars conjunction. I would say there's some fluidity here. Definitely fluidity. All right, enough Liz Cheney. You also want to look at, we're going to get into the Pluto return night. Let's look at Clarence Thomas, because he was on the list tonight. So let's look at Clarence. All right. So David and I were talking about him the other day, and I said he was a Capricorn, and David said he was probably a Cancer, and we were both kind of right. He's a Capricorn rising with a Cancer sun. What's interesting is that I think his sun is conjunct Liz Cheney's Venus. He's got Mercury retrograde too. Thomas has all these retrograde planets. And Capricorn rising, he's got moon in, what is that, degrees? That's Aquarius, right? Yeah, one degree, is it 1 degree of Aquarius? So Capricorn rising is ambitious. And Clarence Thomas has had a history of being ambitious. By the way, Judge Joe Brown was on Jason Whitlock, I think it was Friday night. And Jason asked him about Clarence Thomas, and Judge Brown said, "Do you want the black version, or do you want the white version?" And Jason said, "I want the truth." I said, "Okay." And Joe Brown went off on fucking Clarence Thomas. He said that he didn't have a whole lot of experience. He was a byproduct of, said the same thing Hillary Clinton did. A byproduct of affirmative action, that was their affirmative action. He was like Judge Joe Brown said, Clarence Thomas was like a quota guy. And Clarence Thomas didn't always like that. Now, that said, right, people can change. They can theoretically change. Now, whether or not, it marked him, because he didn't say a lot for a long time. He said nothing. You would get that with these retrogrades. Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, Cancer. You're going to zip the lip, not going to really talk. And then something happens to him. He gets really sick, goes to the hospital, and now he can't shut up. Like, what's going on here? Right? Was he activated or something? He's got Mars in Virgo. That was another thing. I thought maybe he could be a Virgo. Sun in the 6th house. So the guy is, he's in a lot of ways, he's very unassuming. He travels around the country in his RV, and nobody knows who he is. So he's kind of unassuming, and he's, he may have been at one point super ambitious with Capricorn ascending, but he's kind of a lunch bucket guy. And he has a few things in common with Trump, both Mercury and Venus and Cancer, like Trump has. but unlike Trump, they're retrograde. So when you get into something like overturning a previous Supreme Court's decision, Clarence Thomas is your guy, right? Because he's got these retrograde planets, and that's what he pretty much specializes in, is retrogradism. So is he born right around the same time as Liz Cheney? He must be, because they both have the true node in Taurus. What year is this? 1948. No, Liz Cheney's younger. Liz Cheney is a fire horse, so he's a rat. Clarence Thomas is a rat. 1948 rat. June 23rd, just coming into Cancer. Scorpio midheaven. Well, he certainly, over the last few weeks, he's been transformational, hasn't he? And he's got Jupiter in Sagittarius, which I think is quite good for law in general. I think he enjoys being on the Supreme Court, right? That's a group. That's an 11th house group. Now, they meet in private. They meet over here, maybe in his 8th house where his Mars can come out, but it's clearly a group, right? He's part of a group. And apparently they're tight. You know, he was tight with what's her name? Ginsburg. You know who else? Sotomayor likes him. Sotomayor says he knows everybody's name as he goes through the, you know, the court, and, you know, all the people that are there that are not necessarily involved directly with the court, but, you know, peripheral people, service people, people that keep the building, you know, running and serviced and all that shit, right? He knows them all. He knows their kids' names. That's all Cancerian stuff, by the way. He knows their kids' names. He asks them how their Cancer has the greatest memory. We have Mercury in Cancer, unless there's like too many afflictions in the chart, which Clarence Thomas does have. He's got a square with Neptune. Unless there's like too many afflictions, you know, you'll have a pretty good memory. He probably has a pretty good memory too. And this is what she said, that he cares about people. And this is somebody who's on the other side of the political fence as Thomas. And she had, you know, high marks for the guy. I've never been a huge Clarence Thomas person. Just, I'm on the record here. I'm not a hater either. But he's got that Aquarian moon. And remember the super conjunction that took place on December 21st in 2020, when Saturn and the moon were at 0 Aquarius. That conjunction was on his moon. That's like an activation point. And so in a lot of ways, emotionally, he's committed now to the future. And now there are people who say, somebody sent me this text with a YouTube link to this guy who's a Christian prophet. And I think it's going to be part of my YouTube Prophets of Neptune series. And or just one piece. I just want to do one piece on it, write about it. And he said that the Supreme Court made a deal that it was going to be Roe v. Wade for gun control. Now, that could be true. That could be true. I'm not dismissing that. I am not dismissing that. But we're also dealing in a time of unintended consequences as a result of certain decisions. And particularly when we have the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in Aquarius, where things just don't always go according to plan. That said, his moon is engaged in, as much as a Aquarian moon could be engaged in some degree of nurturing and hope for the future. And I don't know if he has any kids or not, but I'm assuming he's got relatives with kids. Like, there are people in the Supreme Court. I'd say Alito is probably one of them. Maybe Coney Barrett, because she has a lot of kids. Like, she's adopted kids. She's adopted kids from Africa. Did she adopt twins from Africa? I think she did. Gorsuch has kids, grandkids. So at some point, unless they're cutting deals to hang out in the, the underground condo bunkers, that they have some investment in the future. And they're looking around and saying, well, what kind of world is our grandkids going to live in? So if they don't want them to live in, Klaus Schwab WEF world, they're going to start doing some things in order to slow that down. And that's exactly what happened with this whole EPA thing this last week. So I think Thomas is a very interesting study, like just in terms of his chart. And, Uranus has been opposing his midheaven. So he's going to get attention. Like that's going to be a very big deal for him. Currently, right? Where's that south node? He's got the south node at 12. And so where's it at now? 22. So that south node is going to hit his midheaven. It'll hit his midheaven by the end of the year. That would be kind of a crisis time for Clarence Thomas. That'll be a crisis time. Let me just get the right date on that. Where am I? Over here. Let me get the right date on that. So where's his ascendant? Midheaven 13. Oh. Back. 13. Okay. That's Liz Cheney. Forward. 13. Okay. So where are we now? So 13 degrees on his ascendant will be, it'll be in September. So I think that's a crisis for Clarence Thomas. The other thing too, this is something that I just popped into my head. What if Clarence Thomas knew he was going to die? What if when he went into the hospital, right, they said, you've got about 1.5 years, 2 years left to live. What would a guy like Clarence Thomas do with that time? He would say, fuck it, let's go, right? Because I'm looking at this south node in September, right up here in his midheaven, lucky 13. Then it's going to go into the 9th house, which is the house of law. This is the house of adjudication. Judges, 10th house, they rule on things. The laws are made here, right? They're ruled and interpreted and enforced over here. Capricorn. Judges wear black robes. Black is the color of Saturn. So that south node conjuncting his midheaven, September, October. We'll kind of keep track of Clarence Thomas as the summer and fall progress. But if that's the case, he may be like, fuck it, let's go. Let's let it rip. Let's let it all hang out here. He's also going to have a Saturn square coming back, right? Saturn and Aquarius, actually opposition, my bad. Saturn opposition also by the end of the year. That's a turning point in a person's life. We know the oppositions happen at 14, they happen at 44, and they happen at 74. So he's going through the turning point. Something is coming to an end here for Clarence Thomas. By the end of the year, south node here, south node 9th house. That south node is going to hit Neptune, and then you have the opposition. So I think Clarence Thomas is going to try to get as much done as he can in a short amount of time. That's my sense. Obviously, I could be completely and utterly wrong, but I'm usually pretty accurate on this stuff. So, all right, Rock on, Clarence Thomas. Get her done. All right, let's look at the United States. Man, I got that yacht rock song in my head. I got to figure out who it is. Who is that? Who's that artist? Okay, I think I know who it is. Let me see the hits. What are the hits? I keep thinking it's Yvonne Elliman, like a duet. No, she did a duet with Ted Neely, "Up Where We Belong." That's kind of a yacht rock song. Oh no, it was a. Oh, I know what it was. It was a song with Kenny Loggins. I forget who the singer was. The song's fucking stuck in my head now. Okay. Here we go. The Return. The Pluto Return. Let me get my US chart up. Where are we? Okay, there it is. Yes, indeed. All right, let me go in and make a few little tweaks here. And we'll check it out. Okay. Let me guys show you what we got going on here. We got Pluto 27 retrograde. That's interesting. I mean, the United States was born under a Pluto retrograde. So the big moments in time, the big decisions, the big actions would take place under Pluto retrograde, especially in the same sign. Here we go. It's Pluto retrograde in the same sign. So we're looking at 2744 retrograde, 2733. So it's headed backwards. The exactitude of the Pluto retrograde will be felt here this month, right? So it's going to cross again. It's going to hit that 2733 mark. And then it's going to come back and cross over again. And there's one more retrograde after that, right? It gets very close again. So we're going through, these are very pivotal cycles here. And what did we just see? We saw Roe v. Wade back to the States. We saw Joe Kennedy get his job back because he was praying on a football field, and they said he couldn't, got his job back. They ruled against the city of New York on concealed carry weapons, right? So there's some interesting things happening with the Pluto retrograde. They're not done. But we also have the Chiron return of the U.S., and that's coming up too. So we have Chiron here at 20, right? U.S. Chiron, 20, and then 16. So it's not quite there yet, but it's coming. It's coming back. And that goes back 50 years. So that would be 1973. That's when we'll get the Chiron return. So whatever happened and started in 1973. 1973 is the beginning of the process to impeach Richard Nixon. That all started in 1973. So that Chiron cycle is beginning. You know what's interesting about the whole impeachment of Richard Nixon is that once they did that, once it happened, a lot of the fire and the fury of the protest movement went away. Like like they didn't have Nixon there anymore. Gerald fucking Ford. And there were still some things going on, but it was a ritual sacrifice. And I've talked about this before. So we're going back to that period where the impeachment of Richard Nixon began. And it's really started the downward trajectory of the American president. I mean, the downward trajectory of the American presidency really starts with JFK and his death. Johnson's a placeholder. He makes a lot of very, very socially and fiscally liberal Democrats very happy with the war on poverty. And even when Johnson was running for president, he started off, he was going to oppose Nixon and run against him. And I think he won a primary and he won it big. And the polling numbers were heavily leaning Johnson versus Nixon. And you would think with all of that Johnson would keep going, but he didn't. He dropped out. And so Nixon wins because Hubert Humphrey, who had been the vice president, is not a great candidate. So Johnson wasn't necessarily hated per se. Like, how do you hate on the guy that replaces the dead president and then goes about creating the war on poverty? And then we have the whole civil rights thing. It all happens under, like, at that time, people are looking at Johnson like he's this great social reformer. So they didn't really hate him all that much, although in retrospect, he's not a very well-liked president. Then Nixon comes in, and then everything goes downhill with Nixon. Everything. And it all happens. It's all part of this, the beginning of this 20-year cycle with Chiron. So with Pluto retrograde, we're seeing these big movements taking place with the Pluto return. And what's interesting down here is Uranus is going through the U.S. fifth house. Before it had gone through the sixth house, it was, and that's when we were, it was it was the south node, the true node was going through the sixth house. My bad. Uranus was in Aries. It will go through the sixth house. That's going to revolutionize work, and in a way that maybe some people are not going to be too thrilled about. Because the United States will go through its Uranus return when it goes into Gemini. So we go from the Pluto return to the Uranus return. We already have the Neptune opposition. And I've talked about this before. This is a pretty big opposition. We're dealing, all the health stuff, the health crisis stuff. And even, there's cultic activity with the Neptune opposition. Some would say that Trump was the leader of a cult. Some would say that. Some would say that wokeism and liberalism has become a cult. And I would say to some extent, both of those things could be equally true. And we see this with the Neptune opposition going on. Crisis in faith also with the Neptune opposition. And this whole nature of reality with Neptune and Virgo, like what's reality? It's slippery. I like Neptune in the ninth house, but reality is slippery. And I feel like also with this in conjunct with Chiron, that this is where we see a lot of these false flag operations. Because the idea with Chiron and Aries, I think ultimately, is to eliminate, Americans' ability to defend themselves with a firearm, right? And so when we have this in conjunct, I feel like that has a lot to do with the gun theater, right? The crime theater. And it's hard to get a handle on it. It's kind of like Steve Kerr, getting all, hot about Uvalde, but when there's like the 200th kid in the month killed in Chicago, Steve Kerr doesn't say anything, right? Again, that's part of this inconjunct. It's this weird relationship that we have with the vulnerability, of Chiron in the fourth house here, which I do think is in a lot of ways linked to 2A, right? And here's Chiron, the Chiron return. So this is kind of big. And I've looked at this for a while now. It's also the military. We're dealing with the potential for law enforcement or lack thereof as Chiron begins to move, transiting Chiron begins to move into the pattern of the inconjunct with Neptune. So we're in big times here. We're in really big times. We had Saturn in Aquarius hitting that south node, 2020, right? 2020. Actually, it was 2021. Saturn hits that south node and is there. 2021 was rough, man. It was totally rough. And the poles began to flip. And I've talked about, how Leo generally works here with the true node. It's mythical, it's archetypal, it's heroic. And that's not what Aquarius is about. So we've had almost like an activation with Saturn in Aquarius with that south node. And we get into the strangeness, the high strange of, this south node in Aquarius and how it's almost legislated that the very low numbers of a specific underclass who are physically and genetically modified and augmented, all of a sudden now with Saturn here, they becomes a much bigger priority. And as a result, right, these kinds of, Leo issues or Leo archetypes that this country was built on, they're now being superseded by the South Node in a lot of ways. Who are the new heroes in our society? Well, the new heroes in our society theoretically are, Debbie the Dragon does Drag Queen Story Hour or whatever, right? I mean, this is what's happened. Saturn's come in and has activated this south node and has debilitated this true node in Leo. Now, all of a sudden, the south node is accentuated. We're dealing with that now. And it's, for a lot of people, it's very difficult to deal with. And at the expense of, guess what? Children with the true node in Leo. We should be over here protecting these children with the true node in Leo. Instead, it's like we've have given an inordinate amount of institutional power now to representatives of the South Node in Aquarius, transgenderized, transhumanized. And I'm not saying all transgender people are bad. I mean, I've talked about how their lifelong drag queen said, "You're giving us a fucking bad name. Stop doing what you're doing. We can't get employed. We impersonate Barbara Streisand and we sing, and we can't get employed now because of your shenanigans," right? So I'm not indicting everybody here, but there has been a seismic shift. And we've put true node and Leo children at risk. And we're seeing everything start to come up now with that South Node in Scorpio, right? And in this country, it's getting ready to move into the 11th house, which is, it's coming out. Like literally the South Node is coming out of the closet of the 12th house. That's what's happening. And the 11th house is incredible. It's already there. It's social. I mean, we can make an analogy here with the South Node in the 11th house and the explosion across social media and even legacy media with South Node and Scorpio shit that you don't want to see again. Like, it's hard to unsee some of this stuff, but it's coming out now. This is exactly what's happening. Now, as the true node begins to move in the 5th house, that's Leo. That's Leo's house. So now we've got Mars coming in here We've got the true node coming in here. Uranus is already here. So what does that mean? I think there's going to be a pretty significant pushback, in as much as we had an entire month dedicated to South Node Aquarius activities. Again, theoretically, I think this month, July, is going to be very different. I think you're going to see people who, now that Pride Month is over, with Mars here in the United States fifth house, there's like a new sheriff in town for the month of July. That's coming, right? The true node is already there. And because we've seen it now, the cat is out of the bag and in the 11th house. It's totally out of the bag. This is a big time, and this is all part of the Pluto return as well. So we go through, and we're and again, we're dealing with resources. Like, money is a big deal here, and the markets have been incredibly unstable. The stock market unstable, crypto unstable. I mean, so where's your value? Where's the monetary value here? It's you're gonna have to find it in another place. This goes back to what I said earlier with Mars. Look for value where people are not looking for it. Try to find value where other people are. They're not seeing it. They're missing it. So the money thing is big. And by the time it's all said and done, we're going to have a very different relationship with money. It'll either be completely blown out. And by the way, if it gets blown out, it'll be a world blowout. It won't just be United States blowout. The other thing too, Pluto deals with death. And, we're still dealing with a lot of people dropping like flies. Dropping like flies. That's part of this too. And we're going to have the sun, transiting sun. So right there, right? America's solar return. Dun, 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 happens tomorrow. Independence Day. But we are going to have, as we always do, by the end of the month, the Sun-Pluto opposition before it goes into Leo. Only this time, Pluto's there as well. And Pluto is retrograding. So by the time we hit the 20th of July, some shit is happening. 8th house, behind the scenes, monetarily, deals. That's what it feels like. It feels like deals. Deals are being cut. Deals are being made. Yeah, I get Federal Reserve here. I get BlackRock. Something big is going on by the 20th of July. Big financial implications. Significant. Really, very significant. So we're going through this period with Pluto and these retrograde cycles, just like we saw this last week with these Supreme Court decisions being overturned. You're going to see more of that. You are going to see more of that. And I also feel like, this whole idea of quote unquote voluntary austerity that they're going to try to sell is going to be a big part of the story. So keep your eyes out here, because we got Pluto coming in. And let me just go back to my ephemeris. We want to look at a very particular day here. So Pluto is going to be 2733. We want to look, it's at 2744 right now. So it's super close, really close. All right. So we have June, July. Okay. Pluto. That's next Thursday, the 12th. And that is the next conjunction. That's exact with Pluto. So keep your eye on Thursday, the 12th, right there. right there. And the sun, which is that's 11 days from now. So the sun will be in conjunction with Mercury. Okay, that to me is a day where deals are made. Some kind of a deal, because we don't see it. We don't see what's happening, but I think the 12th is a big day. July 12th. And we may not find out about it until the sun moves deeper into Leo, right? And begins to hit the 27th, 28th. We may not find out about what really took place until just before Virgo season. Although with the South Node in Scorpio, things will get out. Things will leak, especially in the press. These are interesting times. They're very, very, very interesting times. Yep. You know, the way that this chart has been set up with Saturn in Libra, squaring the sun in kind of a wide square with Mercury. This is where we're supposed to sort through and deal with our theoretical differences, right? To find some degree of balance and work at it and work hard towards it, because, you know, over 200 years, minus a missing 100 years or so, with the timeline, we're supposed to be able to figure this stuff out. And here we are. We're literally kind of back at square one. You know, it's like, okay, well, we're going to be moved more into our Cancerian clans. We're going to be moved into, you know, groups that are kind of separated. And the whole idea is to work towards that, work towards having some degree of, you know, balance. I mean, Saturn's exalted in Libra. And in the 10th house, it theoretically would represent opportunity for everyone over time. That this is how the system would aspire towards, again, theoretically. And with Juno here in Libra, it's like having a fresh start. Like America was the place where you could get a fresh start. And that's Juno in Libra. And Saturn, as you work hard and you apply yourself, right, you'll be successful here. It's a meritocracy, or theoretically. And you put enough muscle behind things with Mars. You know, if you have some ingenuity with Uranus, you can work it out here. But ultimately, the dynamic comes down to the Pluto Mercury in opposition. And how much are people willing to invest in some ways, in their ability to take care of themselves. Because that's what Cancer does. Cancer's like, you got to take care of yourself. And Pluto here is big government. You know, it's big government. So how do you invest in yourself and be, you know, more autonomous or more independent? I mean, for a country, I think it's a very interesting chart, and especially because we're using the Sibley chart here, and especially with Sagittarius rising. It's optimistic. You know, there's always, to me, that's what, you know, America has at times represented this optimism, this can-do attitude, right? That's Sag rising, the can-do attitude. And I think it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad, and we're all part of it. And even people from other countries who come here and settle, right? It's like, oh yeah. I remember one time I was in a Uber with this guy he was from Afghanistan. He loved it here. It's like, he was like a pig in shit, you know? It was like the American dream. He was making money. He wasn't being oppressed. I was like, oh, I love this country. I love this country. Like, man, you're the new American, right? I mean, that's Sagittarius rising. That's the can-do attitude. Like, I'm here, I'm making money, I'm working my ass off. I believe in something. Yeah, the guy was a Muslim too, but he had this American thing going on, which was huge. So it's an interesting chart. And even Neptune in the 9th house, for all its kind of crazy connotations there, I believe it's in its detriment in Virgo. That even that has been interesting with, freedom of religion. It's an interesting placement for Neptune. As a chart, I like it. But we're going through some changes, people. We're going through some changes. Keep your eye on next Thursday. That's when we have the Pluto return. Exact. Next Thursday. Okay. All right. I'm out of here for tonight. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being patient. Thank you for waiting for tonight's show. And let me throw this link. I think I can throw it in there. I can throw this. I think the mods might have. Mods, thank you for all the work you do. I appreciate that. That's Jason. I appreciate all the work you do. You guys are awesome. So let me throw this in here. And hit that paste button. I think we have it. Man, you guys are chatting up a storm tonight. Good. Excellent. That's the page right there. If you want to jump in and join us in October, look forward to seeing you. All right. I will be off tomorrow. We're going to go watch the parade. We're going to celebrate small town America. Use your head in order to discern what's real. Your heart to stay open to what's possible. We will get through this time. And don't get cheated. Do not get cheated out of your intentionality, your spirit, and your passion. Leave it all on the table. All right. I'll see you guys.